So let's have a look at this first question. Describe the ways. It's being protected by the curved sea wall, which reduces erosion at the base of the cliff, and groins, which stop longshore drift and cause a build-up of a beach, of the beach, which also helps to reduce the rate of erosion. So ways include groins, sea walls, you've covered that. Ways method protects coastline as described, where you protected it from erosion at the base of the cliff and stopping a build-up from longshore drift. So, good answer. This one, explain how two of these ways, now we've got sea wall in there, but no others. So we've only got one way, so already we're limiting ourselves to that level 1, which is a real shame considering you already identified the groins up here. So, let's have a look. Let's go for a red pen. Dissipating wave energy, that's an actual better way of saying reflects wave energy, that's all good. Refracting it back into the sea to reduce the amount that's absorbed by the base of the cliff. Causes waves to break earlier, further away from the cliff, therefore reduces their energy before they reach the sea wall. Again, this is a good answer, it's well explained, but only one. So one done well may reach the top level. I'm hoping that you're going to actually put the second in there to show me how you can get those extra marks, because you could easily get 6 from that. Okay, so physical factors. We have resistance of the rock, so that's kind of the rock type. Less resistant rock will be very much quicker, more resistant rocks. And here you have explained what constructive waves and destructive waves are quite well. I think it's a good answer. You've talked about the erosive power to deposit sediment for constructive. Destructive waves have a weak swash but a stronger backwash, meaning they erode away beach sediment. One thing that you could have mentioned, which is in the indicative content, and I think that's kind of quite relevant, is the wave energy. It's important to consider the type of wave energy. Other than that, I think it's a good answer. Therefore, I'm going to be harsh based on that and give it a 5. So, in answer to this question, there's conflicts between industry and tourism. We've got industry on here. Tourism is a valid reason, it kind of falls under recreation and leisure. So you've outlined 2 conflicts. Let's see how you describe and explain them. So you've identified that there's holiday homes there and ferry trips where the container ferry is built. Reduce the amount because they don't want to have a view of the container port, so that's a good point. Conflicts between industry and conservation as well, as increase in estuary traffic, yes, will disturb natural environment and habitats. Now, this is an interesting point. Right here, as we were referring to Southampton, do you remember what it was called? It was Dibden Bay. Now again, with your last exam, it's important that we remember that you're specific about a location, and Dibden Bay is that one. And also, where we have the disturbing the natural environment, remember that the site was of special scientific interest. Container point of settlements as well, arguments between houses regarding it with the outlook of not in my backyard, which could also lead to people moving away. So, what's the term for that? And therefore, a decrease in house prices. Again, think like a geographer. What can you use geographically to describe those points a little better? So, you've used World Trade as an example with at least 2 conflicts. You've explicitly explained them, but your geographical terminology could be improved. It is well structured with faultless grammar and spelling. So, I'm going to be harsh and say, well, it could be a 7 or an 8. Let's be a nice harsh and go for an 8 there. So, 3B. One way that cold environments can provide economic opportunities is through tourism. There is your first mark. Matches on that. Opportunities for employment. Okay, now that's fine, as well as for making money. Think like a geographer. There's the word you were looking for. Another way is resource exploitation. Excellent. Agriculture is there. Now, we've got the example of geothermal energy used to heat greenhouses. Interestingly enough, Iceland has become one of the largest exporters of bananas as a result of that. Very good. The only thing here is that you have said making money, and I'm going to be really harsh and let that drop a point from you. Remember, the Alps are a vast area, a huge mountain range. It would be much better if you could give an example of an area in the Alps that locates the area you're talking about a little better. Unfortunately, if we pick up here, level 1 is for descriptive observations of human activities / damage, and that is how you have structured this answer. The exam board have been really harsh here, because what they mean when they ask this question is explain the vulnerability of cold environments, the fragility of cold environments. So where we look at things here, the finely balanced ecosystems, extreme climatic conditions, short growing season, lack of water, thin soils, extreme low temperatures. These are the things that are integral to answering this question. So it's a bit of a curveball, it's a tough question, but we have covered all of these things. The most important thing for you now is to go away and find specific locations that you can use to describe these points to. It's not a difficult thing, but I'm not going to mark this question for now. I will exclude it from how we've marked this paper thus far and come away and try it again. Okay, for this last question, it's really important that we understand what the question is asking us. Now, we've got need for management in resolving issues resulting from their development. But a river basin as the Thames needs to be managed resulting from issues. What you have done is you have explained some points very well, but what's missing there is the key terms: socio-economic and environmental needs. Okay, the idea is that the management resolves the issues of environmental problems and, of course, the socio-economic impacts that river basins can have as a result of issues in them. So you have identified the urbanisation in Oxford, you have looked at the fact that the impermeability of the ground, infiltration. We've also looked at the removal of vegetation. Again, flooded houses and businesses. What does that have? Socio-economic impacts. Construction of buildings. Tell me more about what that is, what that means. Okay, you understand the process as well. What you haven't done is underpinned your knowledge of this case study in these areas with those important key terms that will get you those top marks for having used excellent geographical terminology. So we have got the hint of economic damage mentioned here, and the idea of land use zoning, which is also a point that was clearly on the indicative content, so well done. Remember, this question is asking you of the need for management rather than the actual management strategies that have been put in place. So, talking about these certain things, i.e. the levies at the bottom here, doesn't necessarily get you a mark on this question. The thing you have clearly shown, though, is that there are a range of issues resulting from the consequence of development. So we've got flooding causing property damage, and we have the idea of the habitats at the top here. The problem is, as I just mentioned before, there is a little bit of a focus on the actual methods and strategies rather than the need. So, as we said here, let's look at the question. The need for management, not the management strategies. So where you have mentioned those, it means that we're into a level 2 section here. So, you've got some knowledge and understanding. We've actually got some really good knowledge and understanding, not necessarily of the question though. And that's where this comes up. So, we're going to put that into that bracket, and I'm going to be harsh and go for a 9. Final points. So, you've analysed and applied your knowledge, but the question has not quite been answered completely correctly. So, that is where we're going to find ourselves in this bracket. But because you have got the good knowledge, you just haven't necessarily answered the question right. It's definitely in the top bracket there. You have a well-structured question, but your geographical terminology could have been better, as I pointed out at the beginning. Other than that, though, I still think you've done quite well. So we've got ourselves 7 marks there, plus the 9, which makes 16 out of 25. Let's add that up to the rest of the marks. Well, if my maths serves me correctly, overall you got a total of 43 marks, and we're discounting those 2 questions from cold environments. If we were discounting the other cold environment question, then it'd be 43 out of 56. So let's do the 2 percentages for those. So if we include the 9 mark question, which I didn't give a mark to, so you got 0 out of 9 for it, that's 66. If I take that out of the equation, it's 77. So very, very close to an A. Have another go at that question, and I'm sure you could push yourself over the boundary, because if you got an extra 9 marks, then that would make it 52 out of 65, which actually equals 80% on the dot.